Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. I have today an exciting guest, Benjamin, the UK's most hated sales trainer. How the hell are you, man?
I do very well. Yes, I cannot complain. Life is good. Family's good. Business is going well. All my clients seem happy, and all my students seem to be doing well. I'm very positive, very upbeat about the year. It's been a good start to the year. Looking
Yeah.
forward to the rest.
Hell yeah, dude. Real quick, that background is that? Tell me about that picture because I
Which
really
picture?
the photo on the left. You're right, I think,
This one.
where you had this very dignified like uniform, like you're serving the Queen of England. RIP.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I just replaced King Charles's head with my
Uh, yeah. I like
So
that,
that's
man.
it. Yeah, yeah. So we got one on the throne, and then one in his military garb. Yeah, just a bit of fun. It's the backdrop for my record. This is currently a picture because I've just swapped offices and I've got to recreate my
Mm.
set. But normally that's a real set. But I just took a photo of it for temporary purposes. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I love that background, man. It's really reminds me of when I still am in the dungeons of cold calling. Like you've got it really like takes me back. I guess that actually be really great starting point, man. I'd love to understand kind of like your background because from my understanding, you actually used to be in law. You studied law and like back in the day,
Yeah.
yeah, back in the day, you went from chugging brewskis with the bros all the way to doing sales mentorship. But like that's quite the pivot. How did that happen, man? Like what was the transition? Like were you mid shot and be like, I want to be a recruiter? Like
No, no,
and
no,
how did that happen?
no. So basically, yeah, you are right. I read law and history at university. Um, And then I went on to qualify as a barrister in New Zealand. So I
Mm,
did the after university training. I was going to be a criminal defense barrister. That was
wow.
my goal. I did well at criminal law, actually. I excelled. It was the one area of law I really enjoyed. It's the area I always thought was like proper law. It's in the trenches. It's you versus the crown. They've got all the resources and the power. Um, so that was the plan, and so I graduated. I got sworn into the bar, and I was about to start working, and I had a thought because I was still young. I would have been 22, I think. Yeah, I was
Mhm.
22 when I qualified. Um, I thought before I start, I'm going to have a little bit of a break. I'm going to hitchhike around New Zealand for a bit. That was my goal. 'Cause I used to hitchhike all the time as a student. Being a student, I was cheap, so to travel between towns, I'd hitchhike. And obviously, people say don't hitchhike. It's always
Yeah.
been dangerous to hitchhike, they say. But I had some. Actually, I used to love hitchhiking because I had some amazing experiences. The sorts of people that would pick you up, and some of the
Huh.
stuff that would happen on the way was quite was quite incredible, actually. So I hitchhiked. So that was the plan. So anyway, I made that decision, and then I ran into a friend of mine who had also done law with me, and he'd started working as a lawyer. And we would just started chatting on the street, and I just told him of my plan, and he just said to me, "Why don't you go to England?" And I said, "Yeah, that's not a bad idea." 'Cause he goes, "Because you can get an English passport, obviously, because of your parents." I said, "Yeah, that's true." I said, "Yeah, why the hell not? Why not have a little adventure?" So that was it. So 6 weeks later, I got on a plane and I arrived in the United Kingdom probably with about £1,000, not
Mhm.
much, because I sold everything I owned and I had no plan. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was going to go to England. So that was it. So I was quite, as a youth, I was quite, I guess, a bit of a risk taker. I just made a decision and would act, which turns out I realized is what makes good business people is they take
Yeah.
decisions and they act. They're quick decision makers. Now you may screw up and make a mistake, but you learn from that, and that becomes wisdom and experience and knowledge. But people that procrastinate and dither very rarely do anything. So I've always been quick at taking action. So I just came over to England. And obviously I needed a job. And the first jobs I got were working in pubs because I came in '99. I wanted to be here for the New Year. So I was on London Bridge on New Year's Eve, 1999. And when you're 22, you've grown up in New Zealand. That was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Saw more people than I'd ever probably seen in my life in one spot. And I'd never seen a fireworks display that sophisticated, because trust me, New Zealand fireworks displays are not particularly sophisticated.
Yeah.
So to be in London, in the capital city, the hub of empire, the motherland, English law, I studied law, it's all connected. So that was a wonderful time, but I got jobs. So if you were around in the early 2000s, virtually every pub you went to, it would have been an Aussie, a Kiwi, or a South African probably
Yeah.
served you. That was before they opened up Europe and they could get even cheaper labor. But so for about 2000 to 2004, 2005, most pubs had an Aussie or a Kiwi. It's very easy to find work as well. And I would bounce around. So I worked in Oxford and Cambridge, and Jersey and Southampton, Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire. I bounced around because I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed working in English pubs. They're you go. I met lords right down to just ordinary folk. You'd meet very interesting. There was a wonderful pub in a little village, a very wealthy village, and the English. I can't remember, Siemens was his name. Was it the goalie keeper? He used to visit there. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was never a football guy, but so I had a great time working these pubs, and yeah. So I did that for about 4 years actually, and a lot of it was cash in hand, free board. So you'd save up money, you go traveling. So I would travel to Europe. I traveled around India. I was single, so it was a great lifestyle.
India too. Wow.
Yeah, backpacked around India for 3 months. Yeah, so had some amazing experiences, and then I decided it was time to grow up and go home and become a lawyer, and I did. I went home.
Huh.
And it must have been about 2004, 2005. But within a matter of months, I thought, I can't live here. New Zealanders, I can't do it. After seeing the bright lights and the world, New Zealand still, for someone, I would have been about 27, 28 then, it was just, I can't live here. It's too boring.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And I thought, bollocks, what am I going to do now? I said, well, I'll go back to England. So I went back to England, and I thought, well, I'll see if I can practice law here. And they said, I can't just transition. Had I done 5 years, what they call post-qualified experience, had I done 5 years, then I could have transitioned. So they wanted me to go into another year of study, learn, and go through a particular conversion. And then I thought, no, because I can do exactly the same job if I go back to New Zealand without any extra training. So I thought, I'm not doing that. So then I was at a juncture in life where I had to make a life choice. I don't want to live in New Zealand where I can be a lawyer, but in order to be a lawyer in the UK, they want me to do a lot more stuff. So what do? I need a job. I don't want to work in pubs anymore because I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
So I needed a proper job. So where do you go when you're educated, you can string a sentence together, and you're reasonably intelligent? It's like what can I offer? I have no skill to offer anyone, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only one job available, sales. That's the only possible job I could conceivably walk into that would possibly even look at me. So at my first job, sales job, which I didn't realize was in recruitment. That was my first ever job. I got a job working for a company called Hayes, a big company. And I worked in their West Ealing branch. And back in the day, they have these big recruitment drive days. And so I sent my CV, and then obviously someone said, yes, get this guy. So then we met somewhere in central London, and it was almost like something like, what would you call it? Auditioning for something like, what do you call it? What's I've forgotten the name. The Apprentice. It's almost like auditioning for The Apprentice, because they get you in a room with all these people, and they had you do all these stupid little tasks and exercises, and then they would cull some people, and then the people that were culled moved through to another level, and after I don't know how many iterations of this, whatever was left was then onboarded to be one of their recruiters. This is how they did it back then. I don't know.
So that was the actual interview process to get on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
you had obviously had some interviews, but you had to do these weird little things. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
you
what
had to,
they
you
were.
had to dance for your banana. Yeah.
You did. So I got through, and then I got taken on with a cohort. There probably was about 20 of us in the new cohort intake. So then we go through the actual recruitment training, and of course, you were told you start off on a basic salary of 25,000, I think it was, or £20,000. But after 12 weeks or something, then that would be reduced to 12, and then the rest is commission or whatever it was. And so,
Okay.
so over this period, the cohort that you got taken on with, people obviously started dropping out because recruitment is sales, and all it was is cold calling and canvassing. You didn't know what you. So obviously, and the hours were long. I could never understand why the hour it was
Yeah.
8:30 to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
and and when you first start doing these jobs, also, you're not doing a hell of a lot either. So I remember one time, I didn't even give it any thought. It was 5:30 on a Friday. It was like week 3 or 4 in the job, right? 5:30 on a Friday. I was literally doing, no one's doing anything. And I just said, all right, fuck it. That's it. I'm done. I'm off. And the team manager said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going home. I said, it's 5:30. It's Friday. No one's doing it. He goes, then you got to stay till
Right.
6. I said, but we're not doing anything. It just doesn't matter. Those are the hours. I
Yeah.
thought, fuck, this is stupid. So, what happened is
Oh, I'm so
I was,
mad. This brings back bad memories. Oh my god.
so
Oh
I was
yeah.
terrible. I was terrible at this job. I didn't recruit anyone. I didn't do anything. And so, it was about 6 months in. Most of the cohort that I started with had gone. I was like one of 3 left, and I hadn't recruited anyone. And I remember getting a phone call on a Friday, from the district area director or whatever for whatever. Basically said, Benjamin, I'm going to be upfront with you. This isn't working. You have got 1 week. If
Wow.
by
Yeah.
this time next week nothing's happened, then we're going to have to cut you. So that hit me quite. I thought, son of a bitch, I'm not going to have a job in a week. So
Yeah.
I came in the next week. Obviously, he told me this on a Friday afternoon. So obviously, I had the weekend to digest it, which meant I just went out and got pissed, I suspect, with my mates, which is what you did. Um, I went in Monday morning, and all I did was hit the phones, and I hit the phones hard. And something happened. I ended up getting a load of meetings for them to go on and sell them recruitment services. So we get to Friday, and I get a phone call from the same director. He goes, Benjamin, look, we're not going to have that meeting that I had planned for us today to discuss your future. I'm not available to make it. What we're going to do, I'm going to delay that meeting to next Friday. I want you to do more of the same, though. What you did this week, I want you to keep up that level of activity and that level of meetings. So I did, funnily enough, and get to the following week, and then we had the meeting. And he looked, and I remember this distinctly. He looked, and he said, "Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Um, you're not going to be a recruiter. You just don't have what it takes." Which, in hindsight, I think that's bollocks. But anyway, I was happy to hear that. He goes, but what you are good at is getting these meetings. And over the last couple of weeks, you've gotten to some places that some of our senior people have been trying to do for ages. He goes, I'm going to give you a new job. Your job is just to prospect. Just set appointments for other people to go on. So that's how I fell into telephone prospecting as a career. So that's how it started. So that's what I started doing. And he said, no, I'll do a deal for you. I'll pay you for every new contact you put into the system, and I'll pay you a bonus for meetings that you set. So suddenly, I was able to do quite well. And this is the irony, right? I got poached. A guy that had worked with me, an Australian bloke that had been in my cohort, that I think he got fired or he quit. One of them. That's how you left. You fired or got quit.
Yeah.
He started working for one of these lead generation companies in central London. The ones that they just book appointments.
Yeah.
And this one specialized in advertising agencies. And he apparently, this company was always hiring, and he just said to the MD, he goes, "Oh, I know the perfect guy. I know this guy just picks up the phone and says, 'Hey, meet with me,' and people just meet with him." He goes, You're gonna love him." So they phoned me, and I went and met them, and they offered me a job, and it was paying a lot more than recruitment. The hours were better. And I wasn't working in a shitty little office above like a shop on a high street, it's even the entire surroundings were awful of the recruitment. So I snapped it up. It's like, hell yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
So that's where I started telephone prospecting. And yeah, so that's how it began, I guess. That's how I got into telephone prospecting. And in my first month with this company, I set 14 appointments with marketing directors and brand directors. And I remember the first meeting I ever got was with the marketing director of the Times newspaper. I remember that one distinctly. And so the new employer loved me. He's like, this guy's fucking so that's how this all started. Yeah, and I did that. Yeah, should I stop there? You need to ask me a question,
No.
otherwise
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I think we all go through these intellectual pursuits where we have the vision of our future before hopping into sales. I think everybody just kind of just fucks around and then we accidentally find our way into sales. And
yeah.
I think in hindsight, like, yes, we're glad that we did it. And the first time that I actually got into sales, I was actually selling cell phones of all things. I remember distinctly, I was working at Office Depot. I don't know if they have them across the lake or across the pond where you're at, but Office Depot is a retail like office supply store, and it carries like the most boring.
I know.
Yeah. Decent sized brand, right? But like that was like my first sales job, and I sold myself into that job. I remember thinking it was like a big deal at the time. And I was doing that for a few months, but like the first time that I started to really earn commission, like I distinctly remember like I worked at AT&T, but like my first real sales job came when I was doing debt repair and debt collections. And it's so funny though, because the way that you describe it, you were going backpacking across New Zealand and you found your way into England. And it's interesting because like I did something really similar. I was doing couch surfing. The website, what couchsurfing.org. They back in the day, this is like back in like 2000, in 2009, whenever like I had just gotten out of like a bad relationship. I've been dating this girl for like 2 years. And we after we split, I was just like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Because like I dropped out of college. I didn't have a formal education and I got a DUI and I was just like, fuck. My life's over. I remember when I got the DUI, thank God nobody got hurt, but like at that time, it felt like I had no options. And I did couch surfing, not the homeschooling part, but I did couch surfing and it's really interesting the type of perspective that you get when you just do something like totally crazy. And when I was doing debt repair, like I remember like how fucking awful I felt and how terrible the environment was. So to kind of like paint the picture for you, so and when you were talking about with the recruitment agency, how everybody was just like leaving, like part of your onboarding class just completely sounds. It was the same thing. Like they literally made it like a rite of passage. They bragged about half of you are going to drop out at the end of this. And the other half of you who do remain, you're not going to make it. This is cutthroat. This job isn't for teddy bears. And they really like fed into your ego. And like it was like so tribal, so ceremonial. You would go in the very first morning. By the way, like big fancy building, but then you walk into this fucking dungeon. And the sales floor that every morning they would have this uh like hype session, right? And so everybody would they would go around, the boss would go and throw money at sellers. Like he would throw money and like all of us were like peasants, right? So he was just throw he's like, oh, you did a good job, and just threw this wad of cash. And like that was addicting. And you leave the office and like I don't know if you've ever seen like Wolf of Wall Street, but that scene at the very beginning with Matthew McConaughey and Leonardo DiCaprio and we were doing this, they had us doing this like chant as soon as you left the room. and you were like beating your chest, and everybody is gathering around, and we're going on a straight line, and we're yelling at the top of our lungs, like, we're gonna crush it. And then reality kicks in when you actually start cold calling, and you just get kicked in the fucking teeth. And so it's so interesting you say your first sales job, the real one, it sucked. And I guess for you, so you you wanted to be a lawyer, and you went to school to be a lawyer, and then that didn't work out. You found New Zealand stuff,
Yeah.
and then you had this. I guess was there a point where, and I think we all go through this, where we have an identity crisis with ourselves, where we're just like, what the fuck did I do? Like, and we all are internalizing, like, we try to justify our decisions, of course, right? But have you, what was going through your head? Like, you were doing, you were almost, you were on pit, like, you were basically right at like being cut, and then you got poached. So it's like, what was going on in your head? Did you think like, fuck, I threw away a perfectly great degree, and I had this prestige that was awaiting me, and then now I'm fucking cold calling? Like, what was going on in your head when that was all going down? Like, were you kind of like
It's a
trip?
very it's a good question. I've never been asked that one before.
Ah,
Um, I think at the time, I was very much enjoying my life because, at the time I was living in London. When I was in New Zealand at university, I'd lived with a group of guys. We'd, lived together as flatmates. That disbanded in '99 when I was the first one to head off of our group, and then they were still in New Zealand, and then they ended up, once they graduated that year, they went off to Australia. But we all ended up meeting in London, separately, independently, and then we all ended up living together again. So I was almost reliving, my university years with the same guys, but in London now. So it didn't really matter what you did for a living because you were living for the weekends when the four of us were out partying, and then a group of other friends from New Zealand came over. So I had a big cohort, friends that I'd known since I was 14, ended up coming over, and we were all living within a mile, 2 miles of each other in Shepherd's Bush. So I didn't care that I wasn't doing anything noble or prestigious because none of my friends were doing anything noble or prestigious. Everyone was just having a whale of a time because at
yeah,
this point, for most of us, this was still a temporary thing. England didn't, I never thought I would live in England as long as I have ended up doing. That was not the plan. The plan was I will probably go back to New Zealand at some point. That's but that didn't happen. So at the time, we were just having a lot of fun. So I never felt like I never felt like I'd made the wrong choice because it was the right choice for the moment
yeah,
that I was living in. And it paid me enough to have the lifestyle that a young man living with his mates in London, away from parents and any form of proper control, could do. So it was a wonderful, it was an actual, it's probably, if I could do it all again, I would put it that way. That's how much I do. There's nothing about it I would probably change. I would do it all again, given the opportunity. So, but things did change because after 18 months of working for this particular business, it hit me. I was working on maybe 4 clients a month. So I had 4 different advertising agencies, and each of them wanted about maybe 4 meetings a month, and they chose their target list. So I was getting paid maybe, with commission, 35, 40K a year,
okay,
but my boss was making 3 to 5K per month off of each one of these clients. So I was generating between 12 and 20K. He was paying me 40, and it just hit me, hold up. Why the fuck do I need to work for this guy doing this? Why don't I just go out and find my own advertising agencies and sell them my services? So that was the epiphany. That was in 2006 when I made that decision. And so I quit my job. And I just met my then girlfriend, who's my now wife. We literally only met maybe 3 weeks earlier. And I was just saying to her that this is my plan. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do my own
Oh,
thing. And
oh, that was reassuring for her,
I
huh?
know, and she was incredibly supportive, though, actually, at the time, and obviously it worked out well because we were still together. That was 2006, in nearly 20 years. So I decided to go it alone, and so I found my own and I thought, well, wait on, what do people hate about this particular model? See, this is an outsourced service, so there's someone sitting in an office somewhere making calls on your behalf, and you don't know exactly what they're doing. So I said, I'll do this then. So I would contact agencies, and I ended up picking up 3 clients, charge them 3 grand a month. And I said, but this is the difference. I said, I'm not going to sit in some call center somewhere. I said, I will come and sit in your office. I'll come in 1 day a week, and I would come in 1 day every week, and I will dedicate a whole day to phoning on you and setting appointments. You can listen to me. You can see what I'm doing. And for that, you pay me my fee, and I will get you the meetings that we agree. And that was snapped up. So I went from earning, what is it, whatever, 40,000, I don't know, 4,000, 3,000, £3,500 a month, to suddenly earning around 9 grand a month, double my income
Wow.
for the same job. And because I was able to choose who I worked for too. Yeah, before I was assigned a client. Yeah, I got to pick things that looked interesting that I thought might be interested to try and flog and sell them. So that's what I did, and I did very well at that. All my clients thought I was very, very good at what I did, and so that was another phase. So I was doing that pretty much for 10 years, prospecting every day, not every day, most days a week for 10 years on behalf of advertising agencies, setting appointments with brand directors, marketing directors, and all of that. And I can't think of a company I haven't put a client in front of. Most of my clients went on to win business as a result of one of the meetings. So that was always good. But my job wasn't to win business. My job was to get them in front of people to win business. Yeah, and so then it morphed because one CEO of a particular agency said, he goes, "You're really good. You are really, really good at not only calling, but selling yourself in. I've listened to you and the way you sold yourself to us and how you got us to buy into you, because we've used people like this before, and they're usually useless. We spent thousands of pounds on call centers and they've been crap." And he said to me, "So why are you so good? What is it you do you think?" And I said, "Honestly?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Honestly?" I said, "I have no idea." And he goes, "You see, you need to figure out why you're so good." He goes, "Because if you can figure it out," he goes, "the money for you is going to be in showing other people how to do it." He goes, "This is good, but you'll make a lot more money if you can show other people how to do what you do, how to replicate. So you need to figure out why you're good." That's what kickstarted the whole journey into becoming a sales trainer. Because I thought, I said, that's really good advice, actually. You're right. You're right. If I could show people how to do this, then yeah, I can have a different sort of business. And it dawned on me, I didn't want to be in my 50s still telephone prospecting every day. I remember saying to myself, if
No
I'm
one does.
50 and I'm still something's failed in my life, something's gone wrong.
Yeah, nobody wants to. You're not fucking coming out of the womb with a phone in your hand, ready to bang out
Yeah,
calls
no.
until you die. Like, fuck
Yeah, I don't want to be doing that. So I thought I need to find some other way. And so I began my journey on figuring out why I was good at what I was doing. I met some very interesting people along the way. A guy called Marcus Kalki in particular. He taught me a lot of stuff. Um, I ran into some influential people that helped me develop my character, and who gave me the advice that inspired me, I should say. So there's a guy called Brad Burton. He's a
yeah,
business motivational speaker. Me and him became good friends, and he gave me some advice. So I met very smart people along the way, and I stole from them and I learned from them, and I started applying it, and I started getting better. I started trying things, practicing things, mastering certain techniques that I knew would work, and eventually got to where I am today, and my business does really, really well. I'm very, very blessed. We own our own home. I've never had a mortgage. A lot of people don't realize that. I was able to buy a property. We own 2 properties. I've never had a mortgage. That was one of my goals in life, was to die without ever having had a mortgage.
yeah,
So I set crazy goals, and that's the other thing that I would do to make life interesting, was set crazy goals. Ones that are almost impossible to attain, because it doesn't matter if you don't attain them. It's the journey to trying to attain it. And if you try and obtain something that's kind of impossible, you're probably going to do quite well. I had smaller goals as well, but the biggest one was try and buy a property without having to take out a mortgage, which we managed to do. And then the business continued to grow when you don't have to pay rent or if you don't have to pay mortgage. It's amazing how much money you get to keep.
Right.
Yeah. And then opens up opportunities. My daughter goes to private school. Yeah, so financially I've done very well out of this. And I love it because people who work with me go on to make loads more money. I haven't met anyone that, as far as I know, unless they haven't told me, that hasn't taken what I've done and run with it, and it's transformed how they sell. And everyone takes what they want from it. Some people
Yeah.
really, really embrace it. Some people take the bits that they just want or need. Some people do little. It's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But what I do know is I get emails from people all over the world that I've never met who say, I've been doing your course and I just want to say you've just fundamentally changed everything. I had a woman in Australia contact me and say, because of you, I was able to buy a house in Melbourne. Yeah. And she goes, and they're fucking expensive. I was able to save up
Yeah.
enough. And she goes, and that's because of you. So I get stuff like that all the time. And that's what keeps me going. I like the money, so I'm not going to lie. I don't want anyone to think I'm doing this altruistically. No, 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 no. I get paid well for what I do. But I get paid well because people apply what I teach and they see the benefits in their own lives. And it changes them. And they're happier. Selling is a miserable job if you're doing it badly. It's
Right.
a really depressing, soul-destroying place. And I like the fact that I can look like this, act like this, behave like this, have a lot of fun, and still get paid really quite well for what I do. And I like other people to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, I love that, man, and, that's actually one of the reasons that I actually started following you, actually for a few years. I remember seeing just a random cold call in the wild from you. Like, like, off the cuff, you had this pitch that you did on YouTube. It was just a random interview, and I listened to the cold call, and it was something, a salesman had like a frog in the throat and one of those pitches. And I used that pitch just from like parroting what you said.
Yeah.
And it landed me into the cold call hall of fame with this outplay company or whatever.
Yeah.
It was fucking random, right? And I was just like, man, his shit does work. And what I love about you, man, is there is a surgical honesty about you where one, you're very open. You don't try to glorify sales and you tell it it's very raw. And you you open with and a lot of people hate the word vulnerability, right? Oh, it's fucking scary. We're being vulnerable. But I think you should. I think there needs to be an honest clarity about, sales in general because sales does suck. And
Mm.
we're not naturally designed for sales. I think most people inherently are actually really bad at sales. And what I like about your story is you go into the process of I was bad and then I realized what I was good at. And I think that's really the paradigm shift that a lot of sellers have is there's inherent weaknesses and strengths in every dimension of their sales process. And some sellers, I think, need to identify or at least should try to look inward on if I suck at discovery and I suck at closing, maybe I'm actually really good at prospecting because these are fundamentally different skill sets. And and so what I take away from what you said is there's that you had this humbleness to you, but there's also you can also tell you're very proud of your work, and it's very clear the results that you've given the customers. Like I believe what you're saying, and there's a lot of sales coaches out there that I'm just like, you're full of shit. But you, I don't
Yeah,
see,
there are.
yeah,
There is a lot of BS out there in the sales world. And the reason it is 'cause they're appealing to what salespeople are looking for. They're all looking for a really quick solution. They're
yeah,
looking for the one line. They're looking for this. They're looking for the one tap. It's not like that. It's not, a good lawyer isn't good because he's got one good line or one good trick. It's because he's got fundamentally brilliant at the basics. And he knows the basics inside out, and he can do them backwards, sideways. And he knows his stuff, and he's got years of experience, and he knows when to ask a question, when not to ask a question. He knows how to ask a question. He knows when to look at the jury and pull a face and when not. He knows the theatre. He knows the art behind it. And too many salespeople don't want to go through that process. And the reason is I always say this, 95% of people in sales don't want to be there. They're there because they fell into it. They needed a job. And after 2 years of being in sales, you realize you're trapped. There is no transferable skill set. I've never seen a job saying wanted former salesman.
Right.
Yeah. Where do you go if you've been doing sales for 5 years? What other job can you just walk into?
I could do shit. Being honest, I'm not qualified for anything else.
What can you do? No, you
Right.
can't. There's no other job. You are trapped in the world of sales. You
Yeah.
become a sales manager. Yeah, but you're still in sales. How do you? Well, yeah, very few people. So most get stuck. Most don't want to be there. So, and the problem is none of them have spent any real time learning how to get really good at it. They just go through the ropes. And this is why the Pareto rule, 20% do 80% of the work. And there are a handful of people that get really good at this and do really well, but most are mediocre. Most are operating on a 7 out of 10. They're at leasters, I call them at leasters. At least I just hit target. At least I didn't miss target. At least I can, and it's just at leasting it. And they do just enough to get by. And they coast. And that's why things like COVID and economic turmoil is very good, because the number of managing directors and business owners I spoke to over COVID that said actually COVID had been kind of good for them in the world of sales. Why? Because we were able to get rid of half our sales force, but pretty much the same amount of revenue came in. Yeah, because half of them are just bloody order takers. They're not salespeople.
No,
All they would say, before COVID, they said they didn't have time to prospect. Then COVID hit and they didn't prospect. Yeah, because you never had salespeople, because this is the problem. Most people who end up owning businesses or running businesses, they themselves may have started in sales or they created something, but deep down, they don't know what makes a good salesperson. So they hire people they think can do the job, but they don't know. Right. And this is what happens. You hire people that, I remember the number of times I'm talking to an MD and I said, let me guess how the sales process went. You asked some questions, you had some interviews, and I bet it probably ended something like this. Well, they seem all right. I reckon we should give them a shot. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because after you've interviewed 9 really shitty people, one person that comes across as remotely reasonable is, let's give them a shot. Because the process is so painful to go through to find anyone that's remotely any good. So they hire people that aren't very good at what they do. Yeah. Or they hire for the wrong things. And so it perpetuates the problem. And they just say, well, I wish they were just like me. Yeah, but you're different. You had a product you loved, you were passionate about it, and you were willing to go out and put in the hard work. This isn't their product. They're not passionate about it. They just need a job.
Yeah.
That's why they suck.
Yeah.
And it's hard because most people don't want to get really good at selling.
Why do you think, I guess, no, I agree with you. I think most people are really fine scaling mediocrity. I think most of us are fine coasting, being honest. Like, I don't give a fuck sometimes, right? And if we look at some of the heydays, I think a lot of us will attach our identities to the one job they were really good at that we just got lucky in, just good timing, whatever. And the entire archetype of your entire career is now basked in the former glories. You see this like old high school quarterbacks that, it's like, well, I was really good at, I was such a good quarterback. And like, that's all they talk about is the glory days. And like, all they do now is just work shitty jobs. And I think like, I think the truth is that, most sellers hate that it's a constant calorie burn and it's a constant, you have to improve. If you're not constantly learning, from my experience, and I can't say this for everybody, but if you're not constantly learning and you're not allowing yourself to be uncomfortable and allow yourself to be an idiot, and maybe that's not the best approach, right? Maybe you shouldn't be experimenting. Maybe you shouldn't be doing anything like that. But I think especially when you're early in your career, and it goes back to the beginning of the conversation where you're just like, what the fuck am I good at? Right. And I guess this is a 2-part question. It's kind of loaded. The first part is like, how do you identify, like, let's talk like interviews and shit. So you got a sales manager, they're watching this podcast and they say, hey, I'm interviewing for a sales rep. He interviews really well, but he's actually dog shit once he gets on the floor. How do you test that? And then on the flip side, let's say you got a seller and they're doing okay, but how do you know that this is somebody that has the temperament to actually be a good salesman? Because not again, you can be really charismatic, but suck at sales. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I was an introvert for years and years, but I'll I'll tie that in with the interview piece, and then I would love to hear your thoughts on the other one.
Okay, so when it comes to recruiting salespeople, one of the challenges is most people recruit for the wrong things. They normally recruit for skills, experience, and results. That's what they tend to. You see, wanted someone 2 years experience or whatever. Why? Why do you need 2 years experience selling software to be able to do a software sales job? I don't. It's not rocket science, for fuck's sake. So I don't
Yeah,
understand them. So what they tend to recruit for are what we would call lag indicators. They're backwards looking. Skills are backwards looking. Experience is backwards looking, and results is backwards looking. And again, results, a lot of salespeople take credit for work that was done as part of a team. Oh yeah, I brought $1 million deal. Did you really? Was it you?
yeah.
Just you? Yeah. So skills, experience, and results are okay. I'd say they're okay. They're nice to haves, but they're not must haves. What are the must haves that make salespeople predictable that they're going to do good? You're looking for predictors of success. So, what are predictors of success? One is attitudes and beliefs. This is something people rarely interview for. What are their beliefs? And when I say beliefs, what are their money beliefs? What are their beliefs of the role of a salesman? What are their beliefs of the role of the prospect? What are their beliefs around taking control? What are their beliefs about answering questions? What are their beliefs? So belief determines behavior. What you believe will determine how you act. So I'm interested in your beliefs because your beliefs are going to tell me how you're more likely to behave. Habits are the same. What are their habits like? Talk me through your prospecting habits. How do you prospect? How do you get past gatekeepers? Talk to me how you get past gatekeepers. If a prospect were to say this, how do you deal with it? Why are you answering their question in your response? So I'm gathering information to figure this out. The other way is so you got skills, experience, and results. So attitudes and behaviors is what I'd look for. The other one is habits, which I've said. Habits. We are creatures of habits. We will do tomorrow what we did today because we did it yesterday. So, what habits make a good salesperson? What are those habits? Well, one is prospecting. Okay, so what's your prospecting habit like? Talk me through how you prospect. How do you identify who to call? Why do you call at that level? If they, so you challenge them. And the other thing I'd look for is cognitive ability. Cognitive ability is the ability to learn on the job, think on their feet. So during the interview process, I ask, it's amazing the number of CEOs or MDs when we're talking about their sales team. And I ask presumptive questions. A question is where I presume the answer, and I'm pretty sure they're going to give me a negative. But if I don't, I'm still sitting pretty. So I'll say to them, so can I ask you a question? When you had them make cold calls in front of you during the interview process, how did you find them? And virtually without fail, almost all of them say, we didn't actually do that. And I say, why not? And then they always scratch their head and go, I know, in hindsight, I would have made, yeah, so, no, so I'm asking you, I know hindsight's brilliant, but why didn't you do it? I just didn't think of it. How could you not think of it?
Yeah.
This is a phone-based job and you didn't. So then they start to realize, this is the reason you have shit salespeople is because you've hired the wrong people. It's not their fault they're shit. They were shit coming in. Your job is to filter the shit. Yeah. So you failed in your job in recruiting. So had you listened to them, you would have figured out very quickly that they were no good on the phone. So if I do get people that are willing to make calls in front of me, I listen to their call and say, okay, that was all right. What I'd like you to do is this. On the next call, I'd like you to do this. Then I want to see if they can do it under pressure. Because if they're able to change what they're doing under pressure, now I know I've got someone that can learn. And someone who can learn under pressure, Well, that's like AI, isn't it? That's the whole point of AI. You want something stupid to get smarter. And so what I want to do is if you can learn under pressure, that means you've got the raw materials to get good. You can take direction, you listen to direction and you apply it. That is good. So I want to test you. The whole interview process should be tough. They're too nice. They tell me about what you achieve. Tell me how you do this. Name the situation. And there's no, mine is to tell you what, get on the phone. Let's hear you now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people can't do it. And they go, no, I'm normally better than this. It's like, no, you're not. This is what you're going to be like on payroll. Because on payroll, the pressure's on. You've got to deliver. How you're performing now is how you're going to perform the moment I'm paying you. And right now, you're not inspiring me to want to give you any money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you some things to do. I want to see if you can do it. If they can do it, okay, this is good. So you've got to go through that process. You've got to make the interview process far tougher for salespeople. Sales is a pressured job. An interview is not a pressured role for a lot of people. They've practiced. This is the one thing they've got good at, is doing the interview.
Yeah.
Make it hard.
So how do you, I guess, because you're going to get pushed back on, how do you measure that? Because it's very subjective at that point when, because here's the thing. And I'm sure you hear it all the time. You can hear somebody, and they'll do a cold call and they'll do a role play, and the role play sounds good, but that's just not how people respond to real life. So how do you measure what an effective like role play? Because some companies are going to be kind of protective of their customers, right? So I'm sure that they'll do role plays, but I guess when they're doing cold calls and they walk you through like crystal clear prospecting motion, okay, that makes sense. But when you're trying to test them on the cold call, like how does it, what's a good cold call sound like? And then you mentioned, uh I need them to be able to react under pressure. Like what are the things that
Well, I'm
signal?
looking for, are they in control?
Okay.
Are they in control of the conversation is the first one. Are they phoning up and talking at the person, or are they engaging them with questions that get the prospect to open up and answer? So a lot of cold calling fails, often because, first of all, the pitch is terrible. This is the other thing. How do they sell themselves and how do they sell in the product? And a lot of the times people phone up and talk about themselves. And instantly I know I've got someone that doesn't know what they're doing. If you're phoning up talking at someone about what you do, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
What you want to be phoning up is talking about what you fix. So that's the first thing. I then listen to how they respond and listen to questions. I'm listening for their listening skills. So I will deliberately say things in a role play in the hope that they're going to pick up on it. Yes? So I'll say, well, it does sound interesting. It's probably something we'd consider in the future. No, I want to find out if they're listening. Because if I heard somebody say that, the thing I'd be listening to is the word probably. Well, when
Mhm.
you say probably, what do you mean? See, I want to see, are you listening? Are you challenging? So this is what I'm after. So I'm trying to see, how do they respond to real conversations? Are they listening? Are they reading between the lines? When the prospect says, well, we're already in a process of fixing that. How do they actually challenge that intelligently? If somebody says we're in the process of fixing that, which bit of that sentence is the bit that needs clarification, do you think? Which bit of
Yeah.
that sentence? We're in the process of fixing that. You get this in the software world all the time. Get your
Yeah.
phone up to talk about, whenever you're selling software, you're normally fixing stuff that most people recognize, but they always come back with, well, no, I recognize all of these things, but we are actually in the process of fixing that now.
Yeah.
So what do we challenge in that response?
Are you asking me, or are you just saying
Yeah,
it
I'm
out loud?
asking you, and your audience, if you can hear it, can scream it at the screen.
Yeah, yell at the screen. We're in the
What do we
process.
challenge?
We're in the process of fixing that. My instinct when I hear that is when you say that you're in the process of fixing that. Can you tell me more? Like, what do you mean? Like you're in the process? That would be my instinct. That's what I'm listening for. But I'd love to learn what would
No,
be
no, no,
good
you're
for.
right.
Okay.
You're right. That is a word most people screw up. But the question you would have asked might lead down a dead end because it's not good enough. So if somebody says we're in the
Hmm.
process of fixing, process is a spectrum. People use the word to cover a broad range of potential activity. So when I hear someone use a vague word that has multiple meanings, I then use what I would call as I call it the ABC or something else question structure. So when you say you're in the process, do you mean you've already appointed a third party and they're working on it? Do you mean you're looking at potentially getting a third party? Or do you just mean this is something you're thinking about that needs doing? Because that's what process means to someone. It could mean any one of those three things. See, now they pick one. They go, well, and I've had this. I phoned up a company and they've literally said, well, we're in the process of doing that right now. And I asked that question and they said, well, we're signing with Microsoft in 2 weeks. So suddenly you now have a live opportunity. You actually have a live opportunity in this moment. They haven't signed with a third-party supplier, but they're actually in the market. So now you've got an opportunity. You may get it, you may not, but you've gone from what was we're in the process of fixing that, to actually there's a live opportunity here, or by challenging with a better question what process means. So this is what I'm looking for in salespeople. Are they listening? Are they using their brain and intuitively challenging what the prospect's saying? Because I need to get to the truth. My job is to gather information, not give it. And I can't gather information if I don't know the questions to ask.
So that's that's actually really enlightening. So it sounds like the way that your process that you use when you're coaching is about not is effectively just challenging not just challenging, but it sounds like if you had to identify like a theme, a centralized theme, we're getting to the truth. Now, the question I'll push back on that you'll hear is, how do you do this juggling act with cold calls where you try to get to the truth at a surface level? You're not obviously going to be able to do a deep probing session on a
Yeah.
cold call out of the blue, right? Because there's that feeling that salespeople have, where we may feel that we may be wasting their time, or we may feel we have to get through that pitch. So if it, because I know that we're coming up at time, but how,
Yeah.
what would you say to those sellers that in order for them to ask the right questions, how to get out of their head, how to unfuck their mind whenever they enter a cold call in that way, so they don't rush.
Well, yeah, a cold call. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to do this briefly, but you need a structure for your cold call. Most people don't have a structure. Most people don't even know the purpose of a cold call. You ask the average salesperson, what is the purpose of a cold call? And they'll say something like, well, get a meeting, get an appointment, find pain, find need, create a relationship. They give you all these answers, and all of those are wrong. Those are all potential outcomes. Outcome and purpose is different. Now, what's the purpose? What are you trying to do to this human being? Because this is a human being you're talking to. What are you trying to do to a human being that you phoned up out of the blue, that wasn't expecting your call, and probably is not even remotely thinking about you, your business, what you do, or what you fix? So what are you trying to do to this person? And the answer is, I'm trying to get them emotional about whatever it is that I fix. Now, I don't know if they have problems I fix. And I don't know if, even if they do, if they're remotely concerned about fixing them. So my job when I'm cold calling isn't to get a meeting. That's an outcome. What I'm trying to do is find people that I can take on a bit of a journey. And so when I say these are the three things I fix, but I get the feeling you're going to tell me you don't recognize them, I'm not interested in the people that say I don't recognize them. Fine. Not a problem. I'm not interested. I'm interested in the 2 and 10 that say to me, yeah, I can relate to that. Okay, so of those three things, which one stands out to you the most? Well, if I had to pick one, it would be the first one you said, this. Now I've got them picking something they can relate to. It's still intellectual. So I want to take them on a short journey to move them from an intellectual frame of mind, I acknowledge this problem, to getting them to slightly feel it's annoying them or feel it's irritating them. If I just need a little bit, because if I get that, when I say, well, look, I don't know if I can fix this, but let's pretend I could and you genuinely believed what we had could eliminate this for you. Is there any reason you wouldn't invite me in for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes? They usually say, no, I can't see any reason why. Doesn't mean they're going to buy. Doesn't mean they're going to, that's irrelevant. All I want is to get in front of you, because now we know you've got a pain that I may be able to fix, but yet it may not be big enough for you to want to fix. That's fine. That's what the meeting's for. But there's a reason for us to be talking. It's not because I said I'm going to be in the neighborhood. Can I pop in? Can we just grab a quick coffee? Can I just show you? All of that is a lot of pointless work. But if someone actually, by the end of the conversation, says, you know what, yeah, maybe there is something, I don't know. You're right. That's all I want. So my job is to get someone to feel a bit of emotion about what I fix. If you don't know the purpose of cold calling, you are literally just phoning up, spraying and praying and hoping that you can talk somebody into saying, okay, come and see me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you do have a hard stop right here.
I do have a hard stop,
Okay.
unfortunately. You know.
Oh, no, no, no. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'd fucking talk to you all day. So for the viewers that are going to be watching you and they want to learn from you and give you money,
Yeah.
you know, what do you suggest they go to Sales Matrix?
Well, the easiest way to give me money is obviously visit my website, salesmatrixcourses.com. But it's Easter week and I'm running an Easter deal actually. So if you're on my email list, you would have received the email, and I'm offering 6 months access to my platform. There's a new how to create the perfect 30-second pitch bootcamp has been added to the platform. I'm going to be doing 3 live bootcamps over 3 months, advanced cold call questioning, how to close and sell proposals, and also telephone prospecting. You'll get all of that for a one-off 72-hour deal. So if you're watching this the week of Easter or following Easter, visit my website, salesmatrixcourses.com, and put /sales-kit. Yes, salesmatrixcourses.com /sales-kit, KIT, and you'll see the deal there. It's the sales transformation package. I love people getting good at what I do, so I run these deals every now and then to get people into the platform, to get them learning. This is a great deal. You're going to get a lot of access for a lot less money, but it's only open for 72 hours and is in only 27 spaces available on all 3 boot camps. So yeah, I would do that. Otherwise, you can reach me on LinkedIn, or you can contact me through YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, or you can just email me, benjamin@uksmosthatedSalesTrainer.com. It's not hard to find me.
Not at all. The UK's most hated sales trainer, arguably one of the best sales trainers, especially if you can. I want that hat. Give me one of those hats. I want to confuse people in the US. But listen, man, I really appreciate this. I fucking love it, dude. I love the honesty, just how raw it is. It just come with a wealth of information. So sincerely appreciate it. Love what you put out, man. So
thank you, Landon. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. You have a good one.
You too, man. Bye-bye.